how's it going? Thanks so much for tuning in. For today's video, we'll be taking an in-depth look into the all-new Ferrari 488 GTB. This will be an in-depth review where we'll start it up, show the engine, get an exhaust clip, and go over the performance data, taking on a thorough drive and show you many of the unique aspects throughout the interior as well as exterior. Before we begin, I'd like to extend a huge thanks and shout out to Queen City Dream Cars of Charlotte, North Carolina for providing this opportunity to us today. They offer a lot of really cool and unique services that basically allow you to rent your dream car in ways that you may not have thought possible. So if you'd like to learn more about the company and the fleet of cars that they offer, please feel free to check out their website provided in the description box below. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop on in, start it up, let her run. This example is finished in blue Tour de France, complemented by an interior combination of Cuello and Nero premium leather upholstery with blue accent stitching. Starting up the 488 is a little bit different from the 458 in the fact that you don't actually have a key anymore. It's a full push-button ignition system. So you just keep the little key fob within the interior. There's actually a little space to set it down in the console there. Then simply put your foot on the brake and hit the steering wheel button to go. The 488 borrows its steering from the 458 Speciale, a hydraulically assisted rack and pinion setup that's said to be 8% quicker, leading to sharper turn-ins with less effort required from the driver. Having driven the 458, the 488 delivers every bit as much fun and more. The steering is incredibly direct and responsive, and there's a ton of front-end grip. The unique 3-spoke steering wheel continues to be a main focal point for the interior as it incorporates all of your necessary driving controls. Everything is within the driver's immediate reach, including the indicators, wipers, and lights to the bumpy road setting and Manatino drive mode selector. The horn buttons are cleverly integrated into the upper grip bolsters. Up top, an LED indicator follows the tachometer to indicate the proper shifting intervals. As we've discussed in prior videos, the Manatino dial automatically adjusts the transmission shift protocols, adaptive magnetorological dampers, electronic differential, and F1 track stability system. In the more aggressive settings such as race and CT off, the driver has more control of the car and less innervation from the electronic systems, best suited for track use. Sport is more or less your day-to-day mode, while wet places a priority on traction and stability during inclement weather. The 488 delivers power to the rear wheels through an updated 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. Compared to the 458, which already boasted incredibly quick shifts, the 488's gear ratios are unique, allowing it to put down power quicker and with greater immediacy, especially in the lower ratios. On top of that, the transmission upshifts 30% faster and downshifts 40% faster than a 458 Italia. In comparison, the Speciale's gearbox was 20% and 44% faster, respectively. What hasn't changed is how smooth and responsive the transmission is. Shifts are practically seamless, accompanied by rev-matching downshifts and a satisfying clink every time you pull on one of the massive column-mounted paddles. To switch between automatic and manual shifting, simply press the button in the control bridge labeled Auto. When in manual mode, the transmission is now able to perform multiple downshifts if you hold down the left paddle. To ensure the power gets put down to the ground properly, there's an electronic limited slip differential integrated within the transmission, in addition to a variable torque management system. That basically controls boost and fuel flow to give the engine a different torque map and peak in each of the car's 7 gears, all in an effort to mimic the linear acceleration curve of a normally aspirated engine. In other words, it electronically limits peak torque relative to the gear you're in. The limit is progressively raised higher with each upshift until the full 560 pound-feet of torque becomes available in 7th gear. It's all so effective and sublime in how it all works. Aside from the sound of the engine and the ridiculous amounts of power it develops, the car feels as natural as any 458 I've driven. So let's go and flip on the fully automatic LED accented bifunction HID headlamps, rear fog lamp, as well as the hazards. Both windows are fully automatic. Now let's go check out the exterior, shall we? The 488 GTB represents the next chapter in a long lineage of iconic mid-engine V8 supercars that began 4 decades ago with the launch of the 308 GTB. Not only does it serve as the replacement for the much revered 458, but it also marks the return of Ferrari's classic model designation, where the name of the car references the engine's unitary displacement. Simply put, 488 is the rounded displacement of each cylinder in cubic centimeters. Multiply that by 8 and the exact displacement is around 3,902 cc or 3.9 liters. In comparison, the name 458 represented a 4.5 liter 8-cylinder engine. GTB stands for Gran Turismo Berlinetta. The 488 is more than just an evolution of its predecessor, it's a marked improvement in just about every measure. Thanks to a number of new technologies and advanced engineering tactics, some borrowed from the 458 Speciale and some from the LaFerrari, Ferrari has created a formidable track weapon that really raises the bar in both power and efficiency. It reaffirms itself as a class leader in both driving dynamics and livability. We have a lot to talk about, and there's so much that's new about this car, but the most important thing is that the 488 is the second modern Ferrari to swap natural aspiration for a pair of twin-scroll turbochargers. Ferrari isn't a stranger when it comes to turbocharging, but up until recently with the launch of the California T, those turbo models have been limited to just a few, including the iconic 288 GTO and the F40. Sure, turbocharging and downsizing have become a common practice lately in response to stricter emissions and fuel economy targets, but in reality it gave Ferrari the necessary tools to create a proper successor to the 458 in today's modern world. In regards to styling, the 488's seductive aluminum bodywork has been almost completely formed based off of wind tunnel testing and aerodynamic targets. It's the second Ferrari after the LaFerrari to be designed in-house at the Ferrari Styling Center. The only major things carried over from the 458 include the roofline and floor. Ferrari claims that 85% of the 488's parts are new. The wheelbase remains the same while overall length increases slightly. Major changes to the space frame are mostly limited to the front and rear, including a wider rear track to accommodate the new powertrain and account for the extra airflow requirements. Thanks to a variety of weight-saving measures, the 488's body and chassis is collectively 65 pounds lighter than a 458. A bit was added back with the turbos and intercooler hardware, accompanied by a slight increase in rearward weight bias, but it still leads to a net weight savings for the whole car of 25 pounds or so. The goal with the 488 was to increase downforce over the 458 without increasing drag. In fact, the drag coefficient was dropped from 0.33 to 0.324. In the front fascia, there's a double spoiler and open mesh grills to either side that feed a pair of radiators. Whatever air is not used is passed on through the passages in the front wheel wells to help in cooling the front brakes. The open section in the middle of the front fascia is dominated by 2 pillars and a deflector that helps divert the high-pressure air towards the radiators and underneath the car. The bonnet features a prominent raised center section and a set of subtle vents at the leading edge. The channels to either side channel the hot air expunged from the radiators away from the car. The flat underbody features an abundance of curved fins, 6 up front and what appears to be 2 in the rear. They serve as vortex generators, creating an additional downforce that draws the car closer to the ground at higher speed. On the rear fenders, 2-tier intakes inspired by the original 308 GTB can be found on either side just behind the doors. Large scallop sections in the doors and even the door handles themselves channel gobs of air into the intakes. The upper set feed the engine while the lower set feed the intercoolers. Excess air not taken into the engine flows through a pair of ducts adjacent to the LED tail lamps to reduce the drag caused by the low pressure weight behind the car. One of the more unique sections is the tail end and what Ferrari calls a blown rear spoiler. Rather than your traditional wing, whether it be fixed or adjustable, the 488 has a narrow slot in the body at the base of the rear glass. It opens up in the middle of the rear fascia and directs the air passing over the car through the tail to produce downforce. Like the 458 Speciale, the 488 also features high-mounted twin exhaust outlets, allowing for a full-width rear diffuser. On top of that, the 488 is the first volume production Ferrari to use active aerodynamics. There's 3 hinged flaps across the middle that automatically lower at 17 degrees at higher speeds to adjust between increased downforce and drag reduction. For example, when extra downforce is needed, such as when going through a corner, the flap remains closed. The flap then opens on straights and acceleration when less drag is needed. All in all, the aero changes are said to provide 452 pounds of downforce at 124 miles per hour. That's 150 pounds more than what the 458 can muster at the same speed. At 155 miles per hour, the sinewy silhouette is developing about 716 pounds of downforce. That's a 50% improvement over the 458. North American pricing begins at $242,737 including destination. After that, the sky's the limit when it comes to options and bespoke requests. Wheel choices for the 488 consist of 2 main styles, including standard 5-spoke alloys and lightweight 5 twin-spoke forged alloys. Both wheel sets are available in 3 different finishes for a total of 6 options, including the diamond-cut forged examples seen here. The asymmetric wheels are half an inch wider than what you would see on a 458, and they're wrapped in wider Michelin Pilot Supersport tires. All of the wheels measure 20 inches in diameter, but they're 9 inches wide in front with 245/35 tires, and 11 inches wide in the rear with 305/30 tires. The Michelins are a more street-friendly tire that can better handle inclement weather and colder temperatures, but they also helped increase lateral acceleration by 6%. This should allow the 488 to slot in between the 458 Italia and 458 Speciale in terms of grip on the skid pad. The 458 was capable of just over 1 G, while the Speciale could pull an incredible 1.33 G. As far as the brakes go, the 488's far more powerful engine deserves a proper set of brakes to keep things in track where it matters the most. In comes a new Brembo braking system derived from the LaFerrari, including their new Extrema design monoblock aluminum calipers and HT2 discs that feature greater silicone content. The calipers, in conjunction with newly designed pads, work to promote better cooling and more consistent stopping performance even under severe use, on top of having a longer service life. Ferrari claims the new hardware reduces stopping distances by 9%, along with the reducing unsprung weight, which, when based on the 458 Italia, should put it stopping from 60 miles an hour in less than 100 feet. The cross-drilled and internally ventilated rotors measure 15.7 by 1.4 inches in front and 14.2 by 1.26 inches in the rear. They're clamped down by 6-piston and 4-piston calipers respectively. When abruptly lifting off the throttle, the brakes are even preloaded to greatly boost response in panic stops. ABS, stability control, traction control, and electronic brake force distribution come standard. Underpinning the car is a fully independent suspension similar to the 458, with double wishbones in front and lower L-arms, along with a multi-link setup in the rear. The 488 is fitted with Ferrari's 3rd generation of magnetorological dampers, which include a new ECU with accompanying software and sensors to better modify the magnetic field in the dampers. The dampers also have new piston rods that reduce friction for greater control in both body movement and bump absorption. Through sharp corners, the 488 exhibits 13% less body roll than a 458 without having to use stiffer springs. It rides relatively good for what it is. The 488 also uses an updated version of the side slip control system that first debuted in the 458 Speciale, appropriately named SSC2. It works to calculate the car's slip angle and compare it to the driver's intended line through a corner, optimizing torque delivery between the wheels in conjunction with F1 track and the E-diff. It's more precise and less invasive this time around, improving longitudinal acceleration out of corners by 12% when the Manettino switch is set to race and CT off. SSC2 also integrates the adaptive dampers as well, stiffening or softening them as necessary to allow the 488 to keep an even flatter and more stable profile during complex maneuvers. Overall length is 179.8 inches with a width of 76.9 inches and a height of 47.8 inches. It rides on a 104.3 inch wheelbase and has a curb weight of 3,252 pounds. 58.5% of that weight rides over the rear. The 488's direct-injected 3.9-liter V8 makes great strides in the name of efficiency, not just in fuel economy and emissions, but the way power is harnessed and delivered. What may have seemed like blasphemy at first, the switch to forced induction has led to the creation of the company's most powerful production V8 to date. Constructed using an aluminum block with aluminum heads and a 90-degree cylinder layout, the new engine shares the same upper cylinder block structure with the mill found in the California T, but that's pretty much where the similarities end. New heads with thinner castings and more expansive cooling circuits, alongside new valve springs, pistons, connecting rods, high tumble intake ports, and a variable length intake plenum, all play a role in boosting horsepower and torque by 107 and 3 pound-feet respectively over a California T. As you might imagine, the spec sheet percentages, comparisons, and graphs is enough to make anyone without an engineering degree's head spin, so let's run through a handful of highlights. For starters, a revised dry sump lubrication system reduces pumping losses by incorporating a variable geometry oil pump and 5 scavenge pumps. Roller finger followers decrease friction in the cylinder heads and reduce parasitic valve train losses by 10%. The latter consists of dual overhead cams, 4 valves per cylinder, and dual variable valve timing. An ion sensing system more effectively controls ignition timing and adaptively predicts misfires to improve efficiency. The compression ratio is now rated at 9.4 to 1, accompanied by a lofty redline of 8,000 RPM. Not quite as high as the 458's 9,000 RPM, but still really impressive for a V8. Two low-inertia IHI twin-scroll turbochargers deliver upwards of 36 pounds of boost, helping the 488 churn out 660 horsepower at 8,000 RPM and 560 pound-feet of torque at 3,000 RPM. That's an increase of 98 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque over the 458 Italia. A specific output of 170 horsepower per liter is claimed to be a new record for road-going Ferraris. Response time, at least in my experience, very closely matches the linearity of a naturally aspirated engine. If there is a difference, it's negligible. As I mentioned earlier, Ferrari did this by limiting peak torque in each gear, progressively increasing it till the full 560 pound-feet becomes available in 7th gear. All things considered, the 488 is able to accelerate to 62 miles an hour in just 3 seconds, just as quick as the 458 Speciale, but with a much faster top end. It can hit 124 miles per hour in 8.3 seconds and fly through the quarter mile in about 10.5 seconds, on the way to its top speed of 205 miles per hour. It's able to lap Ferrari's Fiorano circuit in 1 minute 23 seconds, which is half a second quicker than the Speciale Aperto. The turbos are on ball bearing mounted shafts to reduce friction, while the compressor wheels, larger than what you would see in a California T, are made from a low-density titanium aluminum alloy for maximum spool-up speed. A special seal is used in the turbine housing to ensure a minimum gap between it and the compressor wheels to maximize efficiency. Ferrari states that the flat plane crankshaft and equal length 240mm exhaust runners allow each turbo to be fed with equally spaced pressure pulses for maximum power extraction. The latter serves a big role by helping the engine maintain that signature Ferrari sound despite having the turbos. Along with the increased power, the 488 returns better fuel economy than the 458. It carries a 22.7-gallon tank and requires the use of premium fuel. The 458 was rated between 13 miles to a gallon in the city and 17 on the highway, while the 488 is rated between 15 miles to a gallon in the city and 22 on the highway. The 488's interior builds upon what we've seen in the 458 with a thoroughly refreshed layout that combines world-class quality and attention to detail with one of the most driver-focused cockpits in its class. The two main goals here were to ensure a proper level of sportiness without sacrificing occupant comfort. The design combines many of Ferrari's hallmark traits, including a clear separation of the dashboard and central tunnel, the all-encompassing multifunction steering wheel, and the center-mounted control bridge for the transmission. Of course, the meticulous craftsmanship and premium materials are some of the best in the business. You'll be hard-pressed to find any exposed plastic, as the majority of the interior is wrapped in supple leather and decorated with metal accents, or carbon fiber if you so choose. Everything is customizable, from leather and carpet colors to stitching, finishers, audio systems, and more. While the space is highly functional, even more so than the 458 in some respects, it still exudes a unique mashup of elegant and aggressive touches, such as the military jet-inspired air vents, the horizontally more compact dashboard, and the redesigned door panels. The latter are now more comfortable to touch and feature more ergonomic armrests with easy-to-use controls, such as the electric and folding exterior mirrors and a pair of buttons that correspond to the boot and fuel cap release. It's important to note all of the 488's additional storage space located throughout the interior, including the doors, central tunnel, and behind the seats, increasing the car's practicality significantly over the 458. The compartmented glove box also offers quite a bit of space. It's lined in soft felt and is lockable for added security. Along with being a more livable car, the 488 benefits from new, lighter weight seats that offer excellent lateral support but still remain pretty comfortable thanks to new profiles and padding in key areas, which should be especially nice on long trips. There's 5 seating options, including 3 comfort styles differentiated by their stitch patterns, as well as 2 racing options. Electric adjustments are offered on the comfort seats, otherwise they come standard with manual adjustments alongside a manual tilting telescoping steering wheel. The headrests and seatbelts are fixed. If you're planning to regularly track your car, the optional racing seats do have superior lateral grip at the expense of long-term comfort and are offered in 3 sizes based on your body type. Forward visibility, of course, is excellent. The backup camera is certainly helpful, as rearward visibility takes a moment to get used to with the sloping roofline. As far as safety, passengers are protected by dual front airbags and front side airbags.
So let's go and see how she sounds, both sitting still and on the road.
As advanced as the 488 is from an engineering standpoint, when it comes to day-to-day operation, everything is very simple and straightforward. You have all of the bare necessities, nothing over the top in terms of electronic gadgetry. This ensures nothing distracts you from enjoying the ride and everything the 488 has to offer from a dynamic standpoint. The intuitive design positions everything within the driver's immediate reach. The instrument cluster is a prime example of this. Like the 458, the 488's driver information and infotainment systems are located in small digital displays on either side of the central tachometer. Each respective screen has its own little control panel to either side of the instrument cluster. It takes a second to get used to the small screen and controls, but it's a pretty simple setup overall. You have FM, AM, Sirius XM satellite radio, of course all of the modern media options like hands-free Bluetooth streaming, iPod auxiliary integration, and more. Navigation is also included with this system, as is hands-free Bluetooth telephone. In the very bottom you have your radio media data, a digital clock, compass, and cell phone signal strength. The left side pertains more to driver information, so you have vehicle status, trip computers, the dynamic assistance systems, turbo readouts, and a variety of settings where you can customize different personalizable aspects from language to various car settings, display brightness, and more. The turbo readouts have 3 gauges including efficiency, response, and overall boost pressure. Head on over to VDA or Vehicle Dynamic Assistance, and you have a lap timer, you have the screen where you can check the different settings that the Manatino switch is controlling, as well as the stability control. Over to Trip Computer, typical things like fuel range, mileage, distances, and all that good stuff, while Status has a digital speed readout which is otherwise minimized in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and a variety of other things including auxiliary gauges as well as a tire pressure monitoring system.
Now let's go ahead and shut her down, pop the boot, and check out cargo space.
Like the 458, the 488 boasts about 8.1 cubic feet of cargo space, very impressive for a supercar. In comparison, the McLaren 675 LT has 5.1 cubic feet of space, while the Lamborghini Huracan has just 4 cubic feet of space, so the Ferrari definitely has the edge when it comes to daily driver potential. Inside, there's plenty of LED lighting and even a plaque that lists your car's unique specifications. Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed the in-depth look at the all-new Ferrari 488. Be sure to stay tuned next time, there's always a lot more where that came from. Take care everyone.